I didn't put any makeup on today, and I'm not normally in my bedroom. My cat's over here, like just mugging us on this thing. What are we doing this?
I came straight from work. It's been, I understand.
All right.
It's been a week.
We are live. Hey everybody. Sorry, we were chatting. Glad to have you here with the GEG South Louisiana and the Global GEG. We're here with Michelle Lewis, and we're going to talk about all sorts of amazing ways you can build community. If you are interested, if you want to go ahead and join in, she's going to do an interactive Nearpod. I'll drop this in the chat as well, so you can go ahead and if you go to that link, you can join in. We're going to have, she's got lots of stuff here for us to do, so you definitely want to catch this. And the recording for this session will be found at this link. And so we'll keep pushing it out and stuff like that. So let us know if you have any questions. Like I said, I'm Bonnie Chalette from the GEG South Louisiana. Also, Global GEG. We run all of our events on here, so all of our future events will be, you can also find them right on Global GEG. And I'm excited. Michelle, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. It is such an honor and a privilege. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my big screen. Oh, did I do it right, Miss Bonnie?
I got to add you.
Okay. Can y'all see my big screen?
We can see it now. Looks great. Looks great.
Okay. I see it. I can see it. Perfect. All right. So I want to talk to you about crafting your classroom community. And when we think of the word craft, I want to go over with you some main points. And if you're just now joining us, I would so greatly appreciate if you would log into Nearpod. You can use the link that's in the chat, or you can go to nearpod.com and type in ZIDRO. Because at the end of this session, you're going to get 3 months of gold premium Nearpod. So $60 a month, I think, or $60 value. I'm not sure, but for free.
Awesome.
So I want to kind of dive you into a little bit, test the waters a little bit with Nearpod. That's just the teacher in me. And so as we go along. Okay.
All right. Well, we've got some special guests as well, which I'm really excited about. And I'm going to put them in. I removed myself from this, and I'm going to be in the chat. I am just a supporter here. So I'm going to go ahead and add people in, like I said, and I'll keep dropping that link in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you, Miss Bonnie. Why don't y'all introduce yourselves, Ms. Russ and Rupa?
Sure, I can start. My name is Rupa Gupta. I'm with Sown to Grow, and also very excited to have been invited by Michelle and supporting kind of the conversation on building community in your classroom. So I'll have a little bit of time later today to share kind of how we think about that, and hopefully, plant some seeds and ideas that we can collaborate on together.
Absolutely. My name is Valentin. I'm the CEO in the US of ClassTime. I've been chatting with Michelle for a couple of months now. She's been using ClassTime to also create collaborative communities with our gamified assessments in her classroom. And I'm really happy to be sharing, thoughts here, but also most importantly, learning from Michelle, what she has to share with us today.
I'm so excited. Thank y'all so much. And I'm going to go ahead on with the lesson. And again, if you're coming in a little bit later, it's nearpod.com, ZIDRO. And it'll also be in the chat box as well. All right, so when we think about crafting a classroom community, there are several things that go into play. And so, but the first thing that I want to talk to you about is commonality. And so when we talk, I can see 4 people are in. Good, great. I hope more come. When we speak on crafting a community, there has to be a common language. And if you look at this graphic, you can see at the center of it, it's circular, so it's never ending. And there's also time in the center. So it's all about making the most of the time. And we're going to address concepts like pedagogies of poverty. We're going to address rigor, but we're also going to address engagement as we go through. But the very first thing that we want to talk about tonight is commonality. And when I say that term, what does it mean? And so when we think as teachers, we're trained to have the end in mind. And a lot of times in our educational classes, that's kind of relegated to assessments. But I want you to think bigger, stronger. And so when we think of equipping a whole child, we have to think of the end in mind. From the time that they are 2 years old to the time that they step forth in a workforce or onto a college campus. And so we want to think long term. We want to deconstruct what is constructed and look into that. So designing with the end in mind. I'm going to take you through probably about 4 minutes of a very quick overview of every objective that we're going to have tonight, kind of an agenda, if you will. And then we're going to break it down systematically. So we're going to go through fun concepts, but I want to go deep with you tonight. And I want to honor the time that you've invested. And so as you can see while it's loading, you can see that, again, it's much more clear, but you can see that it's circular. But these are the concepts that I think are kind of integral to creating a whole child. And so we have commonality. And while this one's loading, I'm going to go into one that's already loaded so that we can kind of move things along. Is that working, Bonnie? Are y'all able to see it?
Yeah,
Good. There we go. All right. Just for time's sake, again, I want to honor your time because it has been a long week back at school. You can kind of see I'm wearing my work clothes, came straight in from work. So I feel y'all and I appreciate your time. All right. But when we look at developing with the end in the mind, I want you to see the parallels. Our end game as educators should be to equip students where they are change agent citizens, or when they well, and again, we have this mindset where when they step into the quote unquote real world, but I want to start shifting the mindset and restructuring it to where we mobilize our students and we equip them where they can be change agents now in ways that are meaningful and relevant. And so when we craft our communities within our classroom, we're crafting them in such a way that it empowers students. And so that starts first and foremost. And again, if you look at the parallel, we have to start with commonality. Commonality, where we, and this is a beautiful quote, where we know that they are capable and we see them as kings and queens. This is a beautiful quote from Abraham Maslow, and we always like to have the hashtag Maslow before Bloom's. And in the education world, we know that Bloom's is a taxonomy by which we raise the rigor of instruction. So everything is kind of housed in that space. But we know that first and foremost, we have to have a common belief that every child can. And so I'm going to read this quote. One's only rival is one's own potentialities. One's only failure is failing to live up to one's own possibilities. In this sense, every man can be a king and must therefore be treated like a king. And so it is our job as educators to see the potential in every child, but to equip that child in such a way where they see the potential within themselves, that they are not in competition. And you're going to see, and that's why I love class time. That's why I love Sown to Grow. We're going to talk about those programs later, and those platforms. But they're not in competition with anyone else. They have a unique, God-given, appointed destiny and gifts and talents that are unique to them for such a purpose and such a time as now upon this earth. And so it's our job to help them tap into that and find their own possibilities and only race against themselves, ever in the pursuit of growth and betterment. And so that's where when we get into Bloom's, Maslow's hierarchy, when we really step into that world where we start to believe that every child can, commonality, that is our common belief system. Because we can't craft communities the way that we'll constantly create systems that are broken if we don't believe that every child deserves to be treated like a king and has the potential for anything and everything. But when we get into that, you can see that they progress towards self-actualization. And when you are fully aware of who you are, you're at the highest level of being, so to say, and that's when you really start to make your mark on the world and you use your abilities to the fullest. And we always have mission statements that say that they will reach their full potential first and foremost, it starts with the mindset of the teacher that stands in front of them, that we equip them from a place of belief that they can and they will. And so the next thing I want to highlight, we're not going to go too deep into it, and so this is kind of food for thought for later, but there's an incredible study that's been put forth by the opportunity myth, and the link is within the slide deck, so you'll have access to this later. But it talks about, and I want to highlight this point right here, the weight of wasted time. As an educator, how much time are we investing that doesn't give an investment back? In business, they talk about a return on investment. Is the time that you are investing, is it going to return on that child's impact on the world? Are we truly optimizing the time? And if you remember that graphic that we started with, time is at the center. Time is at the ever-present urgency, a sense of urgency. So the next thing is community, and we're going to talk tonight about what makes a community, and it's connected through care and concern. And we're going to go very quickly through the ABCs. And so you'll talk about area. We'll talk about what makes people come together, built around a sense of belonging or betterment. And we'll also talk about a commitment to connection. And that is at the key when we talk about crafting a classroom community. How are we connecting? So we're going to go a little deep tonight, which is good. I want to make the most of this time with you, make it meaningful. And then next we'll talk about how do we bring it all together. So we have all these bits and pieces. We've deconstructed it, and now we know what we need to do. We need to equip citizens to go out, to go forth and change the world. Well, how do we take the tier 1 curriculum, and how do we take our bell schedules, and how do we take lunchtime and now checking for temperatures with COVID, and how do we fit it in? How do we cohesively bring all this together? And so I'm going to give you, and that's where we have our guest speakers. And I'm so grateful for their presence tonight and their expertise. But I'm going to give you some structures and some strategies that are going to help with that. And then we're going to cultivate a sense of compassion. And that's where Sown to Grow, it is one of those things where you really don't appreciate the beauty of the structure of a program like Sown to Grow until you hear the heart and the intent behind it. And it is so powerful and impactful. It's very simple, but it packs a big punch for such a simple program. I love it. And then we're going to talk about collaborating and not competing, and how when we have our kids all collectively work through collective efficacy, that is the most powerful form of learning, and we're going to bring in the data to prove that with John Hattie's work and his meta-analysis studies, but as well as flipped learning studies, meta-analysis studies. And so, but when we collaborate and not compete, we truly build, again, back to that hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy, a sense of belonging where we can propel our students to actually realize who they are. And when they have a strong sense of self, they can go out and make a mark on the world. It's second nature to them. And how are we communicating? And that's where class time comes in. What are we saying when we're not saying things? What is what we put forth in front of them say? Are we telling them, like I said at the very beginning, that commonality that we must have, that they have progressive potential, boundless, limitless potential? Do we highlight their strengths, or do we just focus on their needs? Do we celebrate small victories? Are we creating a climate of growth, failing forward? And last but not least, hopefully, if we've done it all right, we have change agents who in their own way can impact their world around them. And we'll slightly delve into this vast world of the United Nations 17 goals. And so I thank you. It's going to be a lot tonight, but it's going to be awesome. And I'm so excited that you're here. So I'm going to go back into Nearpod. Okay. And y'all are seeing all my screen. And so we want to deconstruct to reconstruct, but we want to redesign and restructure it stronger. So if you are here tonight, and I thank you so much, tell me something good about your class community. Share your thoughts right here in the chat. All 9 of you who are in Nearpod, yay! I'm so thankful for you. Tell me something good. In our class, we have Capturing Kids' Hearts, and that's how we start off every day. I basically harass my kids at the door with like wiggles and smiles. Some people might call it dancing. It's wiggling, in my case. But our art teacher, I love her so much, Miss Doris. She actually sings to the kids, and she'll tell them, "Tell me something good," every day, without fail. And so she's also on our Capturing Kids' Hearts team at school, which is a program, a structure, again, a structure for improving the culture of a school as a whole, put forth by the Flipping Group. And my parish, Iberville Parish, our amazing superintendent, Arthur Jofrion, he adopted it. And so I'm so grateful. So I'm waiting to hear from you. Let's see. Maybe I'm just not looking. Let's see. So 2 of you have responded. The students are always smiling and helping each other. I love it. Miss Francis, am I saying your name correct? Oh, you can't tell me because we're not in a Google Meet. I'm sorry. I'm like, unmute yourself. I'm sorry, habit. Distance learning. We play music during work time. Me too. I always have music playing in the background. I have to. It helps me. It keeps the day kind of flowing. And actually, when I was doing my doctorate, I did a whole oh Lord, 80-page study on white noise and the power of it. I love music. Has such powerful, it conveys so much. Love it, Miss Linda. All right, Miss Brandy said, in the past, we would work hard to lift others up when they came in kind of blah. I agree with you. It is hard work. It's right, because you got to keep yourself motivated, and then you have to motivate them. I love hearing from y'all. Thank you so much. Miss Bonnie said, I don't have a classroom this year. It makes me sad. I miss my kids. Well, Miss Bonnie, can I be your kid? I'm learning from you a lot. Do I count? Can I be you when I grow up? Ms. Robin said, even though this is so hard, I feel like it is a miracle this is happening. I agree. You've already got the right spirit, Ms. Robin. We got to celebrate the small wins. That's right. We got to see the good. We got to find it, even when it's hard. I feel like it is a miracle this is happening. They're logging in and they're doing work. Yes. We are moving forward slowly, but we are moving forward. I'm so excited about that. I hear you. I had to remind myself today, and I have a picture of one of my students today where we've been in school 2.5 days because it's been a juggle to have. My partner teacher is, she's getting engaged, so she is now living in another parish, and so there's no one in the room next door. And so I'm juggling both classes with remote students logging in and out. And so it's been a lot. And so I had to sit back and take a moment today and realize that within 2.5 days, they're forming a community and we're laying a foundation, and it's good. And as long as we have that foundation, everything will come in time. But you can't build on a shaky foundation. You got to make sure it's rock solid. So we're putting first things first. And so I so appreciate y'all diving in. Oh, we got some more. Alexandra, my students are open to learning. Good. That must mean you're doing something right, Miss Alexandra. You're here tonight, so that says a lot about you. I love it. I love it. Thank you. And if I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. Mr. Jeff? We're going to go with Jeff. It's kind of in the middle. Asking students about their weekend. We're going to talk about that too. Yes. We start every class period with good things, and I learned so much about them. Making personal connections even more important online. Yes. And I didn't throw it into this, but you can kind of see with Nearpod how I learned so much about you in just less than 4 minutes, 5 minutes. It's just it.
And Michelle, there's even a comment on YouTube from Erin saying that she has a morning routine, that she does music in the morning for all, and then also morning meetings with icebreakers. So yeah, that's amazing to see that people are also contributing via YouTube comments.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mr. Valentin, CEO Valentin, my students are super curious, Annette says, about everything, and they really love to find answers to their questions. Oh my gosh, my science heart just exploded. Yes, curiosity is key, especially in this world. You have to stay curious, and we have to model that every day. Thank y'all so much. I love seeing the board filled up. That makes my heart so happy. And that's what we want. So even virtually, you can see how just a simple activity, and again, if you stay for the whole presentation, and I'm so grateful, or if you're watching at home, you could just pass forward. But but you can get the Nearpod link for 3 months free of Gold Premium. And so where you can do all of this and so much more with your own students. And that'll help build that sense of community, whether you're person to person, face to face, or virtually, or hybrid, or what have you. So thank y'all so much. I missed one, but we'll come back to you. All right, so with that commonality, we already discussed that we have to have that as our starting point. And I want to get into the data, and I'm going to go very briskly, but these are very deep concepts that we could sit on, gosh, for days. But I want to talk to John Hattie's work. And recently he's collaborated with Nancy Frey, and gosh, the other name is escaping me. It's later on, it's like 3 slides over. I'll come back to that. I want to say Fisher, Doug Fisher. But if I'm wrong, I'll correct it 3 slides from now. But John Hattie has long had research done for years and years, where he's done meta-analyses, which is studies on studies. So it's super like aggregated data where it has a preponderance of evidence. And so within that space, it's taking what is invisible, thinking of students, and making it visible. And so he has what's called an effect size. And so within that, and you can kind of see that right here, the red is teachers who adversely affect their students. And earlier I talked about a pedagogy of poverty. When we have low expectations of our students, we are propelling a pedagogy of poverty, and we are inadvertently sabotaging their futures. We are investing time, and we are choosing things that we assume is too hard from them, when the reality is we haven't scaffolded it enough. And I know that's a heavy thing to say. I know the brevity of what I'm saying, but data backs it up. And so how do we create a space where they want to come in and they want to learn? They want to come in and engage. And so that's where, if you look right here and you see teacher credibility right here, and it's in the zone of desired effects, that's where you propel a student 1 to 1.5 to 2 years higher, where they didn't just get what they needed for that year. You set them up even higher. Imagine if every teacher on every campus did that for a child. Imagine if every teacher did that for your child. Just sit in that space for a second. And so that's kind of what we're going to dive into tonight, is how do we get teacher credibility and clarity and build a community within our classrooms, but build students who want to build communities, collective efficacy, the highest impact that you can hold. And again, a recent study was done through and this was kind of put forth in the Digital Learning Playbook by, again, John Hattie, Nancy, and Mr. Fisher. But where distance education, if you look at it, so far it's going low. It's not having the desired results. But school climate is. So how do you get the climate of a good, strong, positive culture? How do you embed that within the digital space? And so that's why I'm so glad you're here tonight. Okay, so, and this is John Hattie, Nancy Frey, and Doug Fisher. Okay, I was right. Yay. Okay. Long day, a lot on my brain. Thank you for staying with me. And if you're a teacher, you feel me. You feel me. And I'm glad you're here. But a differential teacher treatment of low achieving students. This is how the students perceive themselves to be. And this is what studies have shown, is that they feel that their presence is at best peripheral, like to the backside, and at worst, an unwelcome intrusion. It floored me. I will be honest with you. I was reading on the Twitter. I was on the Twitter, and our former National Teacher of the Year Mr. Robinson had written, and he had shared an experience where a teacher literally had him in the back of a room and never called him by name. I could cry just thinking about it. Never called him by name. Could you imagine an entire year and the shame that must have put over him? And in spite of that, he rose, and now he empowers thousands. But he had to break through and be resilient. How? How can that happen? And we know as educators, we know it happens. So how do we break cycles like that? One, we start with commonality. Two, we begin to build where we believe that every child is a king and a queen and they deserve the best we can offer them. Two, we start with building that community that is data-centered, and we optimize our efforts, again, through using best practices. If you're one where you're using digital learning platforms, a lot of school systems I found are using flipped learning, where students are kind of watching videos on the side and then they're engaging in those discussions to kind of optimize and balance out the time. And so even at that, if you can see, oh, I can zoom, yay, okay. You can see this yellow, one of the 12 pieces, again, of most effective, most impactful learning from a teacher is establishing communication and culture. So again, there's a trend here for a reason. It matters. So community. How do we build? Let's define community. Some communities can be defined as a group of kids who, because they live in a certain area, they're part of your classroom. Some communities can be built just like we're building it now, where we have people of common interest who are collectively gathering to learn more. Global GEG from all corners of the earth. And they're built around a sense of belonging and betterment. And we also have a commitment to connection, where you're only going to get as much as you're willing to invest or commit. And so I want to briefly take you, oh, it won't hyperlink. Well, that's interesting to learn. Oh, that's right, because it freezes it. Sorry, guys, I just realized something. Well, later on when you watch this link will take you to my, I made a site, like a Bitmoji-ish site, where all of my students, you can see pictures and stuff that I sent to them. I realized that they couldn't go to summer camp this year. Some of them couldn't even leave their homes. And so, and I realized that when I went door to door to door to find them and bring them bags of snacks and hot fries and chips and Gatorades, because that's what middle schoolers are into. And I just missed them. And I had my mask and my gloves on. We were safe and socially distanced. But I realized that summer camp wasn't an option. And so I created an entire camp for them. But I included and infused things that they like they're really into ninjas. But I know that from doing good things. I know about their interests. And so later on, if you're interested and you're looking for a way to kind of go a little extra, you can peruse that site later. But I wrote letters individually to every single student, and this was a picture that they took the first day of school. And again, that's embedding that sense of belonging, that I value you, I see you. You are different and unique. You are not meant to be like anyone else. You are special, and I honor that. I celebrate that. I want to uplift and encourage that and propel you forward. That is, I'm your biggest cheerleader, your biggest fan. And so that's kind of what these were. And so I put little acorns. This was one of 2 or 3 letters that I wrote this summer, all personalized, as well as calling, and we chatted, and we still did Zoom lessons, but this was above and beyond because I couldn't see them in person. And so, but I put little acorns in their envelopes and wrote to them about how even acorns become mighty oaks, to press on and press through. This is a picture. These are my sweet students. I love Ronnie. This is Ronnie, and this is Kaman. I love them so much. But he had lost his money for book fair, and so she took her money and bought him, I want to say it was like an under $5 little pen or eraser that he was looking at for book fair. But that was so impactful to me because they're 9 and 10. And so even that sense of compassion, community, I got you. That Ubuntu, we belong to each other. I belong to you, you belong to me. I support you. And that was just a beautiful moment that I just happened to have my camera out because I don't know what we were doing. I was like, oh, what? But anyway, this is an image of, I'm going to zoom in, one of my favorite teachers from Louisiana, big shout out. Her name is Kimberly Eckert. But and she's actually a top 50 global prize winner. Not winner, candidate, finalist. But she started doing a sense of community where she empowered her students, and they set up like a sanitation station within the girls' restroom. And so they saw a need and they took action. And it doesn't have to be in profound ways. On that campus, that was something that was personal to them. And so that's just so inspiring to me. And so we look for these big moments where we can never change the world. No, you can change the world right in front of you. And so cohesion, how do we put it all together? How do we go from blooms, from Maslow's to blooms? How do we find the space in between to merge it while putting forth the rigor of high quality content and curriculum, while finding time to do RTI response intervention, while juggling all the other things that we juggle as teachers? Well, we work smarter, not harder. And so that's why I'm so grateful for our next guest. And I'm so glad she's here, Ms. Rupa Gupta, who's going to talk to us about cultivating compassion. And so this is kind of a segue into that. You can kind of see this is my first grade class, where I had noticed that one of my students was very embarrassed because when the bus would drop her off, she lived in a house of lesser means. And so we did, in my first grade class, I brought in a ginormous Barbie doll house. This thing is 3 feet tall. It's taller than them. And a little Barbie doll house. And then we had different little houses, and I asked the kids which ones they would want to live in. And so obviously they all stood by the big Barbie doll house. And so, and then we started talking about light bills, and we started talking about jobs, and we started talking about just life. And all of a sudden, I asked them at the end of that lesson where they would like to live. And the coolest thing that they wrote about was, they wrote that they would just want to live in a home that has love. And it changed the way that they perceive their classmate. All in a 25-minute little talk session. And so again, these are just setting up situations where we empower our students to change the lens that they're looking through, to have compassion. And then not only to have compassion for others, but to have compassion for themselves. And so I'm gonna let Rupa take over the screen, but she's gonna talk to you about social emotional learning and how Sown to Grow is beautifully poised to advance that. And so how it helps promote, and this is where we always want to start, self-awareness. So thank you so much, Rupa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Screen?
Good. Yes,
Perfect.
I will. Perfect. Let me see if I can. So before, as I'm sharing my screen, okay, let's see. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Give me a second. Hopefully that'll work. I think that'll work. Let's try it and see. Let's see.
We're learning.
Can you guys see my screen?
I don't know. Let's see.
No. It tells me, it says it lost permission.
Oh.
I apologize. This is definitely.
We're learning.
Yeah.
About compassion while showing compassion.
Hey, yeah. If you show, when you share it,
yeah,
I can add it to the stream. It's just not sharing yet.
Yeah. I gave permission, but it tells me Chrome lost permission. So let me figure out why that happened.
Google broke today. It broke this morning. Never recovered.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's see if this will work. Okay. That's fine. Okay, let me try one more time and see. I think I hopefully opened it up. Share.
I got you.
Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I was like snapping on mute, Michelle, and nodding my head vigorously through so much of what you were describing and sharing. I think there's so much in kind of the building of community and the relationships. I loved what folks were writing both in the chat as well as in the Nearpod around how that connection can be so powerful and actually is fundamentally the foundation for even accessing the content that we're trying to learn, right? Like at the end of the day, without those foundations in place, I think everything about, the content is going to be a struggle, right? So a big part, as Michelle said, about kind of the Sown to Grow approach is around self-reflection. And before I dive into this, I just wanted to introduce myself. I most recently was working in district in schools. I worked in San Jose Unified School District, which is a pretty large district in the Bay Area, and had both district office roles, school roles. And, my most recent role was the administrator of redesign at a comprehensive middle school, working with 6th through 8th graders. And so much about what I'm going to show you today actually came out from just my time and my experience trying to support students in academic learning and realizing we were fundamentally failing in supporting them in kind of the foundations of their social emotional well-being, strength, and like even kind of belief systems to access that academic learning, and without that foundation, we frankly were not successful. So a lot comes from, I left my district and am working on Sown to Grow for 5 years now, almost 5 years. So our hope is to build, again, concrete structures and routines that we can use to make this stuff kind of something tangible and something that's consistent that we can, implement and see success with our students. And for us, the core foundation of this really is embedded in this self-reflection, this idea around goals and self-reflection. So much about Sown to Grow is focused on emotional well-being and using students, a student-centered approach to think about their own goals and reflecting on their progress against those goals in a way that really helps them understand, where am I? How do I feel about where I'm at? Am I feeling really positive and excited, or am I feeling a little disappointed in myself, or feeling a little embarrassed or anxious or frustrated, right? So how am I feeling? And then thinking about, what are my own next steps? What would I do differently next time? What's a different strategy or approach that I can try so that I can keep moving towards my goals? And this reflection piece on the right here, that reflection to improve, I think many of us have probably dabbled with different aspects of goals and reflection, frankly. But what we have found is that can be where the magic happens, specifically when it's something that students build the habit of. They do it consistently, not kind of one-off at the end of the semester when they get their report card, not just after there's been some sort of incident where they're like, at my school, we used to make kids reflect if they got into a argument on the yard. If it's only associated with those like negative moments, it doesn't build the habit in a way that really builds the skill of kind of metacognitive and critical thinking on your own self. A lot of this, we use this analogy around how reflection, when done well and thoughtfully, is really like looking in a mirror. Like, why do we look in mirrors? We look in mirrors to see ourselves in a way that we otherwise can't, right? Though in a way that others might see us. So that's why we look in mirrors. And for us, the reflection process is really around looking in that internal mirror, creating space to look in that internal mirror. And similar to like, if I look in a mirror and I see my hair is messed up, or I see I have something stuck in my teeth, I fix it, right? When I can see myself and understand where there's problems, I can fix them. And so much about the self-reflective journey is identifying what we're really happy about in our strengths or where we want to work, and working towards fixing it, working towards improving, working towards growth. So that's just an analogy that you might find helpful even in thinking about this with your students. And I think the only other thing that I would just add, I think all of us know as educators, the learning journey has ups and downs. And frankly, it should. If the learning journey was only like positive and up, we're probably not pushing ourselves hard enough, right? But a big part of this reflection is thinking about, in those like kind of natural and intentional ups and downs, how are we doing? How are we feeling? What are the strategies we're going to use to move out of some of those ups, some of those downs, and kind of thoughtfully and constructively, and do it in a way that's repeatable, move towards the ups, So I just share all of that and kind of like the bigger picture of what we do. Michelle suggested that it might be helpful just to show you guys a little bit of about what the platform actually looks like. So I have a little sample that I'll just spend a couple minutes in, so you can get a taste, if you will. Can folks see that, or is that too small?
We can see.
Okay, I'm going to try and make it a little bit bigger. So I'm looking right now at a teacher view, and all of these boxes are just different ways that we have seen schools really successfully, schools and teachers and classrooms successfully implement these reflection ideas. Some are a little more concrete around and connected to academic progress. So students, for example, kind of tracking and reflecting on their grades in their math class, language arts class, whatever it might be. Others tend to be a little more emotionally based. How can I think about and reflect on skills or competencies that might be a little more amorphous, but are very helpful and important? So things like self-awareness, like Michelle referenced, self-regulation, self-efficacy, my own belief systems. So we have some of those that are like structured around both academics as well as around social emotional learning. We also have, just given the current dynamic that I know many schools in the US and I think in abroad as well, are sort of engaging and learning in a way that we haven't ever before, either fully remote or maybe there's a hybrid model where students are kind of in and out. We have some modules, and this is the one I'm going to go through, or just so you can see what it looks like at a high level, that are just intended to facilitate that connection in an environment where we may not be physically seeing our students. So this emotional check-in one, just to show you what that looks like, I'm just going to go to the student view. I'm in a teacher view right now. Is something really simple. And this is now, you're looking at the student view of one of my demo accounts, where kids start thinking about, as a starting point, on a weekly, consistent, regular basis, how did this week go for you? They can start that, and they literally can pick an emoji that has some different kind of language, like this week was awesome, it went great. This week was okay, not bad, not amazing, not so good, or frankly, it was awful. It was really rough for me. So students can pick that emoji and have a space to tell you more about their week. Tell me more about your week, what strategies helped you, and what can you try next week? And this space is intended for students to share that. One thing we intentionally include, as you can see throughout, is this idea around strategies. Anytime students are reflecting, we have some built-in scaffolds that are co-created with teachers and are actually customizable. So as a teacher, you can change these up. But when a student sees sample strategies, we have some examples of evidence-based strategies around focus, how to stay focused, feelings, how to name and manage your feelings, and relationships, how to stay connected, particularly in this environment where you might, have to be isolated. So just something to reference on scaffold. So students can kind of put in how they're feeling. This week was, I'm just going to put in some dots here to save some time, and save that and share it. And as they start putting in more weeks of information, I'll just show you really quickly what it looks like. When I go to the next week, for example, pretend it's a week later, and I have, I'm just going to put in some sample stuff so you can see it. They start to see their own kind of emotional journey side by side with their reflections. And as a teacher, you can give feedback on their reflections to provide support, to ask prompting questions, to help them push their own thinking in that reflective process. And that all shows up as a really cool artifact, again, of that learning journey.
This is actually,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is actually my favorite part as a teacher. And I just want to encourage other teachers, because I know we're all like, when? This takes less than 5 minutes. Honestly, sometimes the kids got so efficient that they did it in under 3. Literally, they click their feeling, they say a strategy, and it took about 10 minutes in the beginning, but we got pretty proficient by the end. And there's so much more. They've upgraded so much over the summer that it almost feels like a new program to me, which is why I'm so glad Rupa is here to talk about Sown to Grow. But what you just saw is why I love this program. It's not flashy. It is not. So most teachers will go, oh, and they'll bypass it. But if you look at the actual data-based, research-based strategies around social emotional learning, the student themselves has to become a self-agent. And if you look at the simple box where they say, what strategies did you use? That in and of itself is where the self-empowerment comes in. So one, we're teaching them self-awareness where they name their emotions. There's power in that. So much power in that. Because once they can identify their emotions, they can shift them. And they can say, I'm angry, but let me shift to a place of calm. They can shift and move through that. And so once they can shift, name, and then shift their feelings, then they can work towards their goals. And what I love so much that you just saw in that little snapshot, it takes less than 5 minutes a week. We would typically do it before or after a test, especially hard tests. Before we did really hard things, it was our way to zone in. But I like where they see their emotions and how it connects. And again, that's what we're talking about tonight, is optimizing what that student's self-agency, self-actualization, where they can connect what they are feeling and doing and expressing to how they are achieving in that simple graph. And if you go back to John Hattie's work, Visible Learning, millions of students have been surveyed to create that meta-analysis and just a preponderance of evidence. One of the top achieving ways to optimize impact is for the students to grade themselves. So the students to be self-aware and grade themselves. So again, it looks like it's such a small and simple thing, but that program is so powerful in its simplicity. And one of the things that I love, there's a book called Beautiful Constraints. In our Americanized societies, and even in our world, we think fancier is better. And sometimes it is. And sometimes constraint is the most powerful, simplified thing. Simple is sometimes the best thing out there. And so I'm so grateful that Rupa joined us. She's the genius, and Francisco's not with her. He was so wonderful. I got to work with him this summer. But I'm so grateful, and I hope you stay on and talk with us more, Rupa.
Yes, I'm happy to. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and so can y'all see my screen again? Miss Bonnie? We need you, Miss Bonnie. We need your expertise.
I'm fixing it. I'm moving it around. I got you. You bet.
I love it. And look, we're building a community right here. And so thank you so much. And as you can see, this is actually a lesson. And again, I know in education, we train ourselves not to see red. We look at red and we go, ooh, we cringe. I love it when I see red on social emotional learning, because you know what that tells me? That child is self-aware. If you look right here, they're saying that red represents not yet. I know what my strengths are, not yet. I know ways to calm myself down, not yet. I know when my feelings are making it hard for me to focus, not yet. And so I love when they're very self-aware, but I love even when they're putting red, it's a loaded question, so to say, because even if you're clicking red, you're aware that you're not fully aware. So it's all within intentionality to self-empower them. All right, so let's continue on our learning. Collaborate, not compete. And I'm so grateful that Mr. Valentin is with us, CEO Valentin is with us. These are some pictures from when I did class time all year. And I can't do it here, but when the sound pops up, it's got this little beat that comes through in some of their collaborative learning experiences. And again, at the end of this slide deck, you're going to see a free subscription to Class Time, where you can go and try this out. It's $100 a year, I believe, you can correct me, Mr. Valentin.
That's 60, yes.
60, okay, yeah, that's a big difference for teachers. Every dollar counts. That's a pencil sharpener. That's a bunch. Okay, lots of crayons. All right, moving on. But you get a free subscription for a trial period. And so just for coming tonight and listening and learning to grow. But these are wonderful collaborative experiences where the students, I'm going to try to zoom in and he'll tell you more about it. It's kind of his baby, his project, so he is the expert, so I defer to him. But you can kind of see where as they're working individually right here, they are building engineering, but they're collectively working towards a class goal. So they're individually accountable for every decision they make with instant data that I can use to drive my instruction and to build up that rigor and to give them academic feedback in the moment. They're collectively working as a group to build a project that is STEM related, and he's going to talk more about this, like this one right here. They're saving endangered species. So once again, that sense of you can change the world. And this is all through a virtual. These are pictures that were taken 4 weeks after COVID hit, when we were still in lockdown. And so lockdown didn't stop us from learning, because those things were still in place in my classroom. When we did it, we did this blended learning in class. And I'm still going to do it this year. Absolutely. Absolutely I will. But you can kind of see, you see how I can spot right here, this little fella? Nobody knows his name, but I do. I can go in and check in on him and pull him and say, hey, buddy, let's go over this. But does he feel insecure in front of his classmates? Does anyone else know? Nope. Only he knows. And so he still feels like he's a part of a winning team. And I know sometimes, and I don't want to name some of the other programs, but like we race our students and we gamify them. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. It's a way to optimize engagement. But sometimes it can have the opposite effect. It can be counterproductive. And so those students who are already on the fray and already feeling like they're not a part of the classroom or not successful, we can compound that. And so that's why I'm such a fan of class time, is because it's collective efficacy while advancing STEM learning and engineering, while advancing real world situations where they feel like they can change things. And so I'm going to let him take over. Ms. Bonnie, we need you. I'm going to let him take over and speak to you more about class time.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle, for the great introduction to our collaborative challenges. I'll keep it relatively short just to respect everyone's time. But just myself, my name is Valentin. I'm originally from Switzerland, and I live now in Los Angeles for the last 4 years, working on class time, obviously, as the CEO in the US. And, we intended or started this company obviously focusing on academic rigor. Class time is used for, formative and also summative assessment. We work with, for example, the Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland on various studies that are also built off of John Hattie's meta-study for visible learning, where we're trying to see how class time, which was the microassessment tool used for this, can improve learning rates. So that was at the core of what we did in the beginning. And then we realized, for the students, it's, not always a fun experience, and there's so much more we can do, amplify, multiply, as you said. And so we thought about, connecting narratives or whatever questions they're working on to real world examples, right? So this could be any topic that they're working on, visualizations. And while we worked with teachers on this, teachers told us, like, what would be great? It would be great if, students could work on something together, not individually, right? And so we realized and thought about it, and we said, in a family, in a sports team, at your church, right? In a company, it doesn't matter where, you're always, it's the collective effort that counts, right? Working together towards a bigger goal. But somehow in a classroom, you're still an A student, B student, C student, and a lot of these, gamification elements are individually competitive. So we ventured out to find a concept where the class would have to work together and where every student was visible, right? Every student's contribution was required to move forward. And so this is how our collaborative challenges work, so that you could, for example, just, prepare a little quiz. I have here a little one on space. It's just 3 questions. But you'll see as a teacher, right, when you send in, have your students join, you'll still get the student data. This is a simulation now, so you'll have all the academic information, but you can launch a collaborative challenge to add a layer of fun, right, and also of a higher mission. So we have stories such as engineering a roller coaster or fighting city pollution. We connect them to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. That would be like SDG 11, right? Like sustainable communities and innovation, or SDG 14, 15, life below water, life on land, where we have the endangered species, where we can connect, students visually to topics that might inspire them, interest them, but at the same time, everyone needs to contribute. So as you've showed on your screen, there is the overall progress of the classroom. Everyone needs to contribute, And then there's the overall class performance. So only if the entire class does well will the story be a success. And so this, really changes the dynamic, and it's such an easy change, actually, right? Just to aggregate the class performance instead of showing the top 25% of the students. And it just changes the discussion between the students. It's really fantastic to see. Even young kids, second graders, will take responsibility. You'll hear like, oh, sorry guys, I messed this one up. Or you'll see kids, help each other instead of like turn away their screens. Like they want to help each other. They all want to win. So it's extremely fun to see how this evolves and how kids will just constantly want to play the same game over and over, right? Because it's just every time you play with a different group of students, maybe. So that is what we've done. But at the end of the day, as an educator, you still have all the data in real time that you need to plan forward, differentiate whatever your instructional strategies are to make most of the very limited time.
Thank you so much. I want to point out two things that I love about class time. I want to just brag on it for a second. That I think sets it apart from everything else I've kind of seen out there. So one of the things is you can use it for instant data, but that data that you just saw him pull up right there, that goes into an Excel spreadsheet. So you immediately have that feedback. Another thing that I love is those challenges that he just showed. They're built on real life buildings. They're built one of them is the London Tower, like you can see. The other one is an actual, he's going to take you right. Thank you, Ms. Valentin. He's going to show you. They're built and they're based around real life things. So when we're talking about, if you go back to the very beginning of our conversation where we talked about where it's parallel, where we have to start with a commonality, believing that all children can, and then we put out steps to construct, to get them to that end goal where they are citizens who take action, change agents. These are real life situations that they are a part of. And I'll let him, like this building right here, the Fight City Pollution, tell him about that, Ms. Valentin.
This is a building in Milan, right? This is an eco-urban architecture. If you go to the SDGs, UN goals, you will also see that number 11 is actually the same building. Interestingly, I didn't know, but it made me laugh when I saw this, where it's about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, right? And so you can talk about this building. You'll have to do some research as a teacher, obviously, to build the discussion off of it. But these buildings are, we try to mimic them. They exist in Milan, and they're fantastic buildings because of their gardens. They obviously help fight air pollution, but they also help fight noise pollution because they're very absorbent. They also help to regulate the microclimate, by cooling the area in a very hot city like Milan. So there's just, fantastic examples that you can connect to and show your students what's out there in the world. And how they connect to the
sustainable
SDGs as well,
United
right?
Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is what we all want to work towards to build a better world. And so thank you so much. When they build the little, when they fight city pollution, I love that one because little CO2s and O2s and oxygen and carbon dioxide, it goes, you can see it, it goes floating up. And so if they don't meet all of their academic goals and answer their academic questions, again, using your current curriculum and rigor, but instilling, so you have your structure in place, but this is just a strategy to get them to meet the structure that's in place. Oh, look, there you go. Perfect. But they want to do it. Like if they don't answer all the questions and they don't get past, I want to say it's like 89%, they don't build the tower. So that's why they want to play the same games over and over again. And so when you let them know that these are the concepts and the mindsets of people who develop these programs, these are people just who were once little children just like them, who dreamed big and thought of, again, what is not working and how do we make it better? And so I thank you so much, Mr. Valentin. And there's so much more to delve into. That is one of probably 15 examples in class time. So it is a treasure trove that, again, with intentionality and with the right communication can become a powerful, powerful tool. That I use it in my classroom. I teach a curriculum called Zern. I use it for our exit tickets. It literally takes me 5 minutes to set it up. And when I tell you those kids will so much work harder, within class time, it's a win-win. It's a win with my students. It's a win with me. I get better results and they retain it better because they're engaged. So again, and they're all working together. So I'm getting engagement. I'm getting the rigor. I'm getting assessments. I'm providing academic feedback. I'm letting them feel like they are empowered to do real world applications. So there's so many things are at play. Again, and it's so simple. It's just adding another tool to the tool belt. It's just a strategy, but it's done with intentionality. So thank you so much, Mr. Valentin. And I don't want to trespass on y'all's time too much, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly, and we're going to go back to that full circular moment. Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. I'm going to go back and share my screen. And yeah. Some more that I'm going to throw out there. Yay! Very quickly. And this is a picture from today. It's catching up. There we go. And this is actually a slide from my fabulous Twitter friend, Ms. Kimberly Eckert, where that basically if we don't have the right mindsets in place, the skills that we spend and we belabor and we sacrifice time and we spend so much out of our own pocket, all this effort and energy to do, but if we don't have them grounded in social emotional learning and feeling self-aware and to lead up to self-actualization, and if we don't have them equipped with 21st century thinking where they feel empowered to fail forward and to adapt quickly and to adjust and to self-assess, those skill sets that we spend years crafting the perfect 5-point paragraph essay, they'll never stick. They won't. And again, that's all neurological. So again, it's about being intentional. But this picture right here is from today, this little Minecraft infused. Minecraft is it's similar to Classroom where they all kind of work together. There's Minecraft EDU, and then there's Classcraft, which is almost like in my little like 80s baby brain, it's like Zelda. I'm sure there's like a current thing like it, but it's like everybody's on a quest and they all like are working together to get to the quest. And so it's another engagement form. I encourage you to go check it out. But this is, her little face got cut off, but this is one of my sweet babies. She created her own All About Me. And so she was sharing with the class, and you kind of see the other students in here this is from today, where she's telling them how much she loves Minecraft EDU, and they're all on a Jamboard giving her feedback. So we're 2.5 days in, and we're already crafting that community where they had to tell her something they appreciate or something that they wonder. And so they're already collaborating. So we had remote students and face-to-face, and it was beautiful. And so again, we go back to communicate, mobilizing your efforts. Do what works. There's so many things that are stacked against us right now. We can't focus on that. Find what works, make it happen. Be empowered. Find the good, make it happen. Mobilize what works. And again, this is all about having the right mindset, because we have to believe that we can before they can. Communication, we always like to start our class off with good things. And this was actually, I'm going to zoom in, this was a word cloud that we did one day in class, Poll Everywhere. I didn't have a Nearpod subscription, and now I do. It's so fancy. I love it. But I use Poll Everywhere, which is free as well. And the students all had to type in a word that they felt they themselves could do better on the second half of the year. And it generates the words based on how many responses it gets. So you can see that perseverance is the biggest word, because they themselves at 9 and 10 years old said, and were self-aware, typed in, I need to work and keep pressing onward. I love that one of these words is vulnerable. I need to be vulnerable. One of them said innovative, appropriateness, typical. It happens. And so middle school has those things. And finally, we want to wrap up where when all of those things are in place, we kind of dabbled into the SDGs earlier with Mr. Valentin. When all of those things are in place and you have crafted with intention, the same way that people painstakingly paint, or they painstakingly with intention knit a sweater, or they carve a tree, they're crafting, they're designing, they're making something from nothing. And if you look here at the original picture that I put forth when we started, we're starting at 0. We are not assuming that they come empty-handed. They come with talents and gifts that they themselves may not be aware of. But we have to find the potential in them to teach them to find it within themselves. We have to speak that life and that love into them. And so they come to us at 0, and through all of these things, commonality, belief that they are kings and queens, and they deserve the very best. Even when we're tired, even when we're running 2 rooms and a remote, they deserve our best. That we want to build a sense of community where everyone feels that they belong and they want to work towards betterment. And they're committed to it, the ABCs. Cohesion, those structures and strategies. You may have a variety of tools, no doubt, my Edtech friends, but are you using them to optimize how students interact? Even though it's fancy, it's the latest and greatest, is it effective in empowering students to feel that they themselves belong and they are empowered? Are you cultivating compassion? We have to have citizens who have a heart for others and have a heart for themselves. We have to. Because if we graduate students and they make $1 million a year, but they can't love their neighbor on the street, we've done something wrong in education. We have failed. We have to cultivate compassion. It is supreme. Are we collaborating or competing? Again, what are we putting in place? What messages are we speaking to our kids that we're not speaking? What structures and strategies? And finally, what are we communicating to them? Are we conveying a sense of strong belief that they are kings and queens? They have unlimited potential and they can take on the world. And that world may simply be helping get the buggies out the shopping cart. Ow. That may be giving somebody who lost their book fair money a nice little something. It may be putting some sanitary products in the high school because some little girls are embarrassed. And it's an awkward phase to be in as a girl. What my friend Kimberly Eckert did. And so again, we don't always have to take on the whole world. But if everyone does their part to each one, and each one reaches one, that's how we have collective efficacy. That's how we change generations upon generations and we make a better world. And that's where our time, right here at the center, we are making the most of the time and we are redeeming it. And so I thank you for using your time tonight to spend it with me. I'm grateful and I want to respect you. We're 11 minutes over, but thank you so much. And as promised, great idea, empower, support. Speak life into them every chance you get. These are some more pictures where we talked about some things in Louisiana that are particular to us. And they saw that we didn't have certain plants. And so we started a little greenhouse. This was with some of my 6-year-old students a few years back. And guess what? I didn't get approved for that grant that year. I bought that out of pocket. Why? Because I believe in my students and I wanted to empower them. But change the world around you and you can change the world. Change the world around you. Love the people in front of you and love them well, even if it's not reciprocated. Be determined to love and live well. And you can change the world. Thank you so much. And as promised, when the slide deck hits, when Ms. Bonnie's will upload it into the YouTube live thing or whatever she does on the other side of the screen.
It's already there. It's there. As soon as we're done, it's recorded. I have to do nothing.
And that's why you're such a big Harry Potter fan. You're like a master wizard.
Yeah, it just does it for me. Either one. StreamYard is great. I have no complaints.
Love it. But this is Nearpod if you type in this code right here. And then class time, I have a link that I'm going to drop later that I'll send to Ms. Bonnie and she'll upload it. So thank y'all so much for coming. And Ms. Bonnie, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank everybody for coming. The replay, if you need to rewatch it. Some of these people I feel like I've hung out with all week. Hey, Shannon. Hey, Stephanie. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you guys from Class Time and Sown to Grow. If you guys ever want to do these sessions with Global GEG or South Louisiana too, let me know. Because I think those are both really cool. So I appreciate everybody. We're going to go ahead and close this out. Let me know, reach out to me. Like I said, you find me on Twitter at Bonnie Chalette. Follow us on the Global GEG. I'm around in all those places. Michelle, do you have your contact information? I think everybody's giving out their contact information on your Nearpod.
Oh, like my Twitter or the free Nearpod stuff?
Either one. No, your people might have questions for you.
Oh, I'm catching on. I got a weird handle. It's got like those underscores.
Or email or anything. Well, we can push that out. I'll make sure we push that out, that information on Twitter and our Facebook and stuff too.
And you can find me in her feed somewhere. We'll do it like that. Follow Miss Bonnie and you can find me.
They might have questions for you. So thank you to everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. I think this was really great. So I will we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you. Thanks everybody so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.